I've been drifting in the north for 5 years, and my boyfriend cheated on me with an intern. The third party flaunted his high salary slip online. The watermark on the picture is clearly visible. He's done for. Chapter 1. After graduating, my boyfriend and I started drifting in the north. The day we decided to stay in City B, we talked about the high housing prices, encouraging each other, we can just rent a house for our whole lives. Over the years, thinking back to our initial enthusiasm, I could only smile bitterly. A few days ago, the agent said that the rent for the next year would increase to $4,000, and we would have to pay an additional month's agency fee. This was just a small secondary bedroom in an old community. Poor lighting, less than 10 square meters, and having to pay $4,000 was outrageous. The agent wouldn't budge. He knew this house fell within the housing subsidy range of my boyfriend's company, so he first factored in the subsidy. Besides, a new batch of students was about to graduate. If we didn't rent, there would be plenty of people who would. I didn't want to be taken advantage of, so I quickly went online to find rental listings directly from landlords to save on agency fees. The internet was filled with fake listings and fake landlords. I was feeling mentally exhausted from searching. Glancing at the time, my boyfriend was about to finish work, and I couldn't help but reflect, at least we still have love, which is already good. Frank came back, not even putting down his shoulder bag before complaining to me about the intern who joined his team. The kids nowadays are really lacking. I have to teach them so many basic things. I sympathized with how hard he worked and prepared myself to comfort him. But as I listened, something felt off. There was a hint of a smile on Frank's lips. Lucy is really interesting. She brings a vase of flowers on the left and a vase on the right to her desk, making it look like a flower shop, and insists on telling me the name of each flower. So childish. I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say, and couldn't help but want to ask for more details, yet felt uninterested. After a moment of silence, he continued, "Well, it's no wonder, she's 6 years younger than me. When I was in university, this kid was still in elementary school. 6 years younger, so she's only 21 now. No wonder when people talk about the oppressive internet giants, she still has the leisure to decorate her desk with fresh flowers. Fresh flowers are so troublesome, so expensive, they wither in just a few days. You can't eat flowers, they're more extravagant than fruits. In order to save money, we rarely even buy fruits." That day was the first time Frank mentioned Lucy, but I had a premonition that there would be many more times to come. Chapter 2. A heart-wrenching event quickly unfolded. That day, I was scolded by my leader for no reason at work, and after work, I turned to Frank to vent, hoping for comfort as before. He was silent at first, then he reached out to his forehead, sighed, and said, "Actually, you're also at fault. The leader criticized you. You could have admitted your mistake straightforwardly. Why do you have to argue right and wrong, making the leader unhappy? For example, today Lucy's code almost caused an online accident. I couldn't help scolding her, but she didn't argue with me like you. She readily admitted her mistake, apologized, and even treated me to bubble tea." He licked his lips, as if savoring the aftertaste of the bubble tea. My heart sank to the bottom of the valley. Frank never drinks milk tea. He thinks it's a product of advertising and marketing, a tax on intelligence. Only fools drink it. In the past, he used to frown whenever he saw me occasionally drinking milk tea, but now he's accepted it so quickly. I smiled bitterly and fell into silence. Frank lowered his head, swiping on his phone, occasionally tapping on the notifications at the top of the screen. His fingers flew. He has really changed. He used to hate wasting time on chatting apps. Approaching midnight, Frank finally put down his phone to take a shower. Just as he left, the screen lit up again. I never checked his phone, so he didn't guard against my thoughts. But this time, I shifted my gaze over. There was a message from the person labeled as Little Fool, meeting at the cafeteria at 9 tomorrow morning. If you're late, you owe me milk tea. Chapter 3. I don't know if Frank, who usually arrives at the office after 10, woke up early for the appointment because at 7, I was already on the crowded subway. Frank works as an algorithm engineer at a big internet company, under great pressure. Due to overworking his brain, he often suffers from insomnia. That's why we always rent a place close to his office, so he can get a little more sleep. However, this means I have to spend over an hour commuting every day. But, a 1-hour commute is normal in City B. It's a city that warps your sense of time and space. Clang, clang, the sound of the subway running reverberated, striking my fragile nerves due to insomnia. I hung on to the subway pole, looking at the advertising screens, realizing today is my birthday. I remember the day we first got together. He held my hand and said, apart from birthdays, on Valentine's Day, 100 days, 200 days, 300 days, anniversaries. All the days worth celebrating, I will give you gifts. He lived up to his words, giving me all sorts of things, giving out his heart, and friends teased him, saying he could offer paid consultations to straight men online. However, since my birthday 2 years ago, when he worked overtime for an entire week, Frank started using red envelopes instead of gifts. To be honest, he isn't stingy. We were classmates. After graduation, he went to a big company, and I went to a state-owned enterprise, one earning money, the other dealing with household registrations. Frank caught the wave of internet development, and his income is quite substantial. At the end of last month, looking at his payslip, he chuckled, "Hey, the taxes I pay are higher than your monthly salary. But you guys are really relaxed, getting off work at 5, so cool." Am I living a relaxed life? I'm responsible for all the household chores, cleaning, buying discounted groceries, painstakingly finding housing once a year, and then asking him if he's satisfied. Last week, I showed him a few houses I found. Frank glanced at them hastily and complained, "No, this house is too old. This one is too noisy, near the street. It's a 20-minute walk to the office, too far." Finally, he impatiently asked, "Why can't we find a better house?" "Because we're saving money to buy a house, cutting costs where we can. The budget for renting is less than $4,000, yet rent prices keep rising. Even if it's just $4,000, we have to pay $12,000 every quarter." Although we agreed that he would handle the rent, the 10 seconds of uncomfortable silence when I asked him for money made me feel shattered. When I came back to my senses, I saw myself in the train window, wearing a loose old coat, with hair that hadn't been taken care of for a long time. In front of me was a very beautiful girl. Jet black long hair, clear black eyes, delicate hands with shiny and exquisite nails. She seemed like a character from a novel, fresh and clean, untouched by the dust of life, perhaps only appearing on the subway because she was in a hurry. Feeling ashamed in this contrast, I quietly walked away when someone got off the train. In fact, I came from a comfortable family in a county town, with supportive and enlightened parents. However, their lifelong savings were just a drop in the bucket compared to the housing prices in City B. For the dream of buying a house and settling down, I lived in City B looking so haggard. Chapter 4. When I arrived at the office, my best friend Debbie messaged me to meet up in the evening, saying she had something important to discuss. I felt restless all day, sensing that it wouldn't be good news. After some small talk, Debbie lowered her voice. "Do you know that Frank has been having breakfast with the interns every day in the company cafeteria?" Seeing my lack of reaction, she added, "Having breakfast? If there's nothing fishy going on, who would be so neurotic to have breakfast together? Sending messages back and forth early in the morning, waiting for you, I'll wait for you, really have too much free time." Seeing me silent, Debbie waved her hand in front of me. "Hey, are you dumbfounded?" I was thinking, I already had breakfast for a while. For a moment, I felt like a heavy stone hanging over my head finally fell, with a loud thud, straight into an endless abyss. These days, if I said I didn't mind him mentioning Lucy repeatedly, it would be a lie. After all, I still loved him. But I had my pride. If he didn't bring it up, I wouldn't ask. Now things were clear. Frank was living an interesting life out of my sight. Debbie suggested I pay a visit to the company. Send something over, assert your dominance. It's normal for young girls to admire older men, you don't necessarily have to dig your heels in. Assert your dominance first. If she has any shame, it's best to cool down. If she's shameless, I'll curse her on your behalf. I shook my head. Choosing to stay in City B initially wasn't to end up like a bad soap opera, knocking on the door like a rejected mistress. Debbie shook my arm as if she'd seen a ghost. "Hey, pull yourself together, be tough, make him marry you quickly. You two have been dating for 8 years, how much longer are you going to drag this on?" Huh? I was bewildered by her words. Rushing into marriage at a time when my boyfriend seemed to be emotionally wandering? Was it me who was crazy, or was it Debbie? Don't give me that look. Do you think men with his education, salary, and looks are easy to find? Let me tell you from my own experience, they're not. Once you catch hold of a man like that, he's not going anywhere. Seeing my intention to retort, Debbie cut me off. I know what you're going to say. You want pure love, true love. But sometimes, love, marriage, it's all a game. Behind so many loving couples, they know each other's warmth and coldness. She sounded a bit pitying. Sarah, Frank still has feelings for you, it's just a moment of hesitation. At this age, getting to know a new man will only make you more selfish, more cold-blooded, more tangled up in trivial matters, unless you're in a Mary Sue novel world. I remained silent. I knew she was right. Debbie had always been frank, and she had told me all the bitter things she had encountered in blind dates. Chapter 5. I silently went back home. Frank was still working overtime and had posted a moment on his social media 10 minutes ago. On the table were beers and skewers, and he wrote, "Loosen your tongue, roll up your sleeves and find bugs." In the corner of the photo was a rose inserted in a vase, with a hint of nails visible in the lower right corner, freshly painted with a shiny pink polish. It felt like we were worlds apart. The couple next door was arguing again, pulling me back from my romantic imagination to reality. Things were being thrown, loud accusations gradually turning into quiet sobs. I used to think that we were completely different from the couple next door. They were the older generation who had moved to the north, not very successful. Approaching 40 and still renting, they often fought like there was no tomorrow, cursing each other, tearing each other apart, far from any romance. But I used to believe that there was love between Frank and me. It was late into the night, Frank hadn't finished work yet and hadn't replied to my messages. He used to finish early on Fridays and we would squeeze into the kitchen together to make dinner. It was past midnight, the previous day had ended, and I hadn't even received a birthday wish. In the silence, I could hear ambiguous sounds coming through the wall. The couple next door had made up. Suddenly, I remembered last summer when they brought a pair of twin girls from their hometown, the four of them crammed into a small room, waking up early on weekends to explore City B. Perhaps they truly had feelings for each other, like intertwined vines. Frank and I didn't fight, but we also didn't communicate. I went to bed early and woke up early. He came home late. We didn't talk about marriage or the future, just saved money out of habit, living our lives numbly day after day. Now, it seemed like he had found a ray of light. Chapter 6. On Saturday, close to noon, Frank asked me, "Haven't you cooked lunch?" I replied, "We're eating out today." At the restaurant, a sense of resentment lingered in my heart as I briskly ordered dishes. After all, he was paying, and being kind to men was pointless. Frank hesitated to speak. After I had ordered the fifth dish to the waiter, he finally waved his arm and closed the menu for me. "Let's start with these. If it's not enough, we can add more. We shouldn't waste." The dishes arrived, perhaps ordering so much made him feel the pinch. Frank finally put down his phone and started eating. I only picked the dishes I liked, and when I was about 70% full, I put down my chopsticks. Not empathizing with men made things much easier for me. After eating, we strolled around the mall, visiting jewelry and handbag stores. Frank paid for me twice, and by the third time, he took a step back at the cashier and smiled. "Here's your chance, pay for it yourself." We must have looked quite odd to the cashier at that moment. I chuckled lightly, "That's all right then," and turned to leave. As we left the mall, I caught a glimpse of my face on the glass wall, looking very dull. Would I really be happy seeking revenge in this way? Playing mind games with him, trying to get as much money as possible from his pockets, not showing anger or giving him the silent treatment, is this a good way of revenge? I'm 27 this year, still in the prime of my life. I just want to love someone wholeheartedly. Chapter 7. In the midst of hesitation and pain, I received a call from home, realizing it had been a long time since I had called my parents. Apologetically, I said, "I've been busy, forgot to call you." "It's okay, we're doing well at home." "Well, Mom and I are thinking of going to City B to see you in a couple of days, is that okay?" My dad's cautious tone made my nose tingle. I replied, "Sure, come over, we'll go around together when you're here." Dad was very happy. "I'll pass the phone to Mom then." As soon as I called out Mom, she asked, "Why does your nose sound stuffy? Caught a cold?" "Not a cold." Holding back tears, I managed to chat briefly before hanging up the phone. A week passed in the blink of an eye. I went to the station to pick up my parents. From a distance, they recognized me first, waving happily, walking towards me, both exclaiming, "Sarah, you've lost weight." My mom embraced me, the gentle scent of her perfume enveloping me. It was the first paycheck I bought for her, and since then, she believed there was no perfume as fragrant as that one. Dad asked with a smile, "Is Frank at home?" Yesterday, when my parents mentioned they were coming, Frank didn't eagerly offer to pick them up as before, instead asking, "Should I come too?" I told him it wasn't necessary, and he visibly seemed relieved, grabbing his bag and heading off to work. This time he didn't come to pick them up, and my dad said, "Work comes first, having our daughter pick us up already makes us very happy." My parents always liked him, and even Frank would often remark, "Your uncle and aunt are really nice people." When he visited my home, his brothers teased him that he might be forced to drink, but in reality, my parents didn't make things difficult for him at all. Chapter 8. On the way to the hotel, my parents were curious about everything, pointing out the Quinfang Baozi shop to each other. I took my parents to eat Yunnan cuisine, ordering their signature dish, steamed pot chicken. Mom remarked, "The chicken soup in City B is really delicious." Dad nodded, "Indeed. And they're so thoughtful, the chicken meat is taken out and drizzled with sauce, becoming another dish." Apart from the steamed pot chicken, my parents only allowed themselves to order 2 more dishes, saying, "This is already good enough. We should save money." Accompanying my parents to stroll around Yuen Pond, buying cherry blossom-shaped ice cream for Mom, she said such a beautiful ice cream must be shared on social media. Dad quickly took out his phone to take a photo for her, the overcast sky making the photo dark, so I also took out my phone and snapped a picture. Mom looked at them both and said, "Sarah takes better photos." Dad scratched his head sheepishly. Being together with my parents was very joyful, but within that joy, there was also a hint of sadness, knowing that this good time was slipping away like sand in an hourglass. When sending my parents off at the high-speed rail station, my mom looked at me lovingly, my dad held my hand tenderly and said, "Girl, keep going." In their eyes, I was always one of a kind, as precious as a gem. They went through the security gate, stepped onto the escalator, and even smiled at me in midair. Standing in the cold air of the South Station in City B, hands in my pockets, shoulders hunched, I felt a loneliness like never before. Chapter 9. I soon found out what Frank was busy with over the weekend. Debbie and he were at a company, and one day she sent me a post from the internal network. She said, I could tell right away that it was him. The post was titled, "Stable Relationship or Heart-Pounding True Love, Which Should You Choose?" I've been with my girlfriend since our student days, our relationship is stable. But recently, I met a very cute junior. It's really hard not to be moved when she looks at me with admiration in her eyes. When we first met, I wasn't very nice to her, but she's so innocent, never took it to heart, instead treated me well. Over time, I felt embarrassed. I've spent the past few weekends helping the junior prepare for job interviews, revising her resume, using all my connections to refer her, teaching her how to answer questions. It's been a long time since I've been so busy for someone. Thinking back to when my girlfriend asked me a few days ago if I could refer her, I instinctively felt it was troublesome, advised her to give up, saying it's hard to get into big companies. But now with the junior, I'm already thinking ahead about how to negotiate her job offer. Maybe I already have an answer in my heart. Most people in the comments section were criticizing the original poster for being fickle, except for one guy who smugly shared his experience. I've been through the same thing, falling for someone after getting married. I confessed to my wife, we went through the issues in our relationship together, ultimately resolving this crisis. Reading this, I felt nauseous. This inflated self-love and extreme selfishness were overflowing from the screen. I just hope Frank doesn't get any ideas and come to me saying, "I've fallen in love with someone else, what do I do?" I fear I might just throw up on the spot. Continuing to scroll through the comments, I saw a sister angrily shouting, "Please, just break up with her directly." But Frank's reply sent chills down my spine. He said, "Recently, my grandmother's health has been declining. I'm afraid that if I break up with her and the junior doesn't work out, I'll be left with nothing on both ends. Please don't be too hard on me, I'm just an ordinary person seeking happiness." Chapter 10. I closed the computer, reminiscing about the years with Frank in my mind. During university, whenever we saved up money, we would travel together, opting for sleeper trains to save money, and he always let me have the lower bunk. With a height of 1.8 meters, he squeezed into the narrow upper bunk, pretending to be relaxed for my peace of mind. He was dedicated, enthusiastic, and always had a good relationship with his classmates. Before graduation, many people wished us an early marriage. Who could have predicted that later on, I would become his backup plan? I stood up, took out a small suitcase, first put in my documents, then the clothes I always wore and the books I had bought over the years. I was getting ready to leave. Looking around the house where I lived with Frank for 2 years, the new bedsheet was hanging on the small balcony. I remembered that day when I asked him to help fold the bedsheet. He was clearly not busy but sat still, only getting up after my urging, casually saying, "Hurry, hurry, hurry, could it be that when you turn 40, you'll become one of those nagging women?" At that time, I felt so embarrassed. A phone call woke me up from my memories. It was Grandma Frank calling. She spoke gently, "Sarah, Grandma has made some rice cakes, I'll send them to you tomorrow." Don't you love Grandma's rice cakes the most? When the locust flowers bloom, come back with Frank, Grandma will make locust flower rice for you to eat together. I responded sadly, "Sure, Grandma, thank you." Frank's grandmother was widowed at an early age, raised her son single-handedly, and brought up her grandson. However, as she grew older, her son and daughter-in-law began to find her redundant, implying and squeezing her out in various ways. Being a strong-willed person, she went to City S to work as a nanny. Later, she even paid for Frank's university tuition. The first time I met her, she was in her 70s, with a crescent-shaped short haircut, using a black wire headband to tidy up her hair, looking particularly fresh and spirited. She naturally held my hand, her eyes bright, with a smile in the corners of her eyes. She was kind to me, but she was Frank's grandmother, and we were never destined to be together. Chapter 11. Spring recruitment was in full swing, and I often saw job postings in my social circle. According to Frank's plan, once Lucy got an offer and her future was secured, he would confess his feelings. If everything went smoothly at that time, a new relationship could replace the old one. I found a place to rent, close to my company and within my budget. Frank caught a glimpse of it once and asked me, "This isn't within the housing assistance range, what are you doing here?" I remained silent. One afternoon, Frank rarely messaged me on WeChat. "I have to work overtime today, it will be late, I'm staying outside, you go to bed first." I stared blankly at the reservation success notification I received in my email a few minutes ago. It was for a hot spring hotel in the suburbs of City B. Frank had forgotten that during our university days we shared some platforms, and he had used my email address. At midnight, I called Frank from my new place. After a while, I heard him answer in a low voice, then he preemptively said, "Didn't I tell you I'm working overtime?" I calmly said, "Let's break up, let's not contact each other anymore, I've moved out." "Sarah, what do you mean? Are you upset? Let's talk when I get back, okay?" Seeing I didn't respond, he became impatient. "Why are you starting with this too? I'm just working overtime, not out having fun." At that moment, over the phone, we both heard a soft voice, "Darling, why did you go out?" I coldly said, "Out having fun, right?" And then hung up. A tear hung in the corner of my eye, which I wiped away absent-mindedly. There was a piece of dead skin sticking out at the edge of my nail. I had subconsciously torn it off many times, and I couldn't find my nail clippers at that moment. I paused while rummaging through my luggage, then searched for a nearby nail salon on my phone. It was close by, just a few steps away. Upon arriving at the salon, I sank into the couch, emptying my mind, waiting for the staff to carefully repair and polish my nails. After getting my nails done, I returned home, took out the projector, wiped off the dust, and watched a movie. On weekends, I could sign up for a flower arranging class, or maybe Pilates. When you reach the end of the mountain and the water runs dry, turn around, and you'll realize the vastness of the world. Chapter 12. Frank smoothly changed his new couple profile picture. Debbie showed me a screenshot of his friend's circle background, where a delicately made-up girl was smiling at the camera while holding a cake. The beautiful girl, radiating an enviable charm, didn't care about privacy. Debbie, feeling indignant, scolded me for being too cowardly. "You're just going to let him off that easily." I comfortingly patted her arm, saying kindly, "How about I write a seamless accusation PDF document about him and spread it on your company's intranet?" Debbie looked at me askance, not falling for it. "I know you're joking again." I said, "Debbie, do you remember Maria, our senior sister?" "How could I forget?" Her voice lowered. "Senior sister Maria was once our shared idol. She spent her childhood abroad with her parents, always wearing a delicate string of pearls around her swan-like slender neck. Senior sister was modest and gentle, taking great care of us juniors. Despite her elegant demeanor, one day she sent dozens of messages in our senior group, accusing her boyfriend of repeatedly cheating, playing both sides. Her words lost coherent logic, became confused, and she spread screenshots of her boyfriend's inappropriate chats with the third party in various groups. Debbie and I clearly remembered the day it happened. We were sitting in the school cafe discussing a group project. A girl suddenly exclaimed excitedly, "There's gossip. Such a big gossip." Everyone pulled out their phones, instantly awake and excited, their eyes wide open. The girl then said cheerfully, "Even though senior sister is so proud, she still got cheated on. Let's see if she keeps pretending in the future." Debbie and I exchanged glances, feeling a deep sense of sadness and horror. This girl usually loved to like and comment on senior sister's posts, boasting about her to students from other departments during public classes as if senior sister was her real sister. That's when we understood that people are often lacking in empathy. While it might feel good to vent hysterically, how many people are genuinely saddened or enraged for you? And how many are there laughing at you behind your back, trying to belittle you? Even if you're a beautiful and outstanding girl, once you lose a man's affection, they will find fault with you, thinking you must have some shameful secrets. As if a woman's greatest value is realized through a man's loyalty. Frank and I were not married, we had no obligation to be faithful to each other. If he didn't love me anymore, I would just leave. Why blame myself and entangle endlessly? Chapter 13. Less than a month after breaking up, I gained a new follower on Weibo. She liked a post from a long time ago, reminiscing about high school. I saw the photo and realized it was the same person as in Frank's friend's circle background, Lucy. What kind of drama is this? Less than a month after our breakup, he's already bringing in an ex as emotional comfort. She recently posted a series of food photos, one of which had a man's hand across the table. Scrolling further revealed the journey of a young girl's secret crush coming true, with many commenting on how sweet it was. Lucy had over 10,000 followers on Weibo, presenting herself as a beauty from a prestigious school. Now, with a handsome and outstanding older boyfriend, she was updating her love life. I casually followed her and watched her display of affection without any ripples, treating it as a social observation. After over half a month passed like this, a former classmate gleefully informed me that Frank was proposing. He said he wanted to surprise his grandmother and asked me which event planning company I used when proposing. "Sarah, I really didn't expect that the person you proposed to wasn't me." "What a pity. You're 28, right? Or 29, as women get older, they become less valuable. You better seize the moment." This classmate used to show interest in me, but I ignored him because I disliked his flaunting of wealth. I never thought he would still hold a grudge. As he continued talking endlessly, I scrolled to a new Weibo post by Lucy. She participated in a discussion of what do people born after 2000 have, listing her and her boyfriend's salaries, which led to doubts in the comments section. In an era where ordinary university graduates only earn 5,000 to 6,000, the income of an internet senior engineer is jaw-dropping. If Lucy were a bit older, she could have ignored it, and naturally, people who understand the situation would speak up for her. But she is still young, and soon she posted a screenshot. It was Frank's freshly printed salary slip. The faint watermark in the picture revealed Frank's name. The company explicitly prohibits leaking salary details, and once you cross that line, you face dismissal and forfeiture of stock options. Due to their public display of affection in recent days, Lucy's followers have already grown to over 100,000. Chapter 14. Internet users are highly sensitive to money and unfairness, and things escalated rapidly as I had expected. Soon, Debbie discovered that Frank's work account had been deactivated. In an internet company, even the most outstanding individuals are replaceable. They are always decisive and swift, not waiting for tomorrow to take action. Once they decide on dismissal, it happens immediately. Frank lost a job that paid nearly $800,000 annually. With unemployment, true love also left him. He went crazy posting on his moments late at night. Every time you wanted makeup, didn't I go straight to the counter to buy it for you? It's only been a few days since we broke up, and you're already showing off bags bought by other men. Am I not capable of buying them? Perhaps realizing the hopelessness of reconciliation, 3 days later, Frank locked his moments, changed his profile picture from a couple's photo. Chapter 15. I took a vacation to visit my parents and went to see the head teacher from high school. Standing beside Teacher Smith's desk, I could hear laughter from the playground in the distance, a sound mixed with the scent of dusk, so familiar, as if I could return to the classroom any second to solve endless math problems. Teacher Smith bent over searching through a cabinet for a long time, then finally straightened up, tapping on a memory book in his hand, saying, "Found it." The dust on the memory book showed that 10 years had indeed passed. After looking through photos of our class, the teacher casually pulled out another book, pointing to a slender girl, asking me, "Do you remember this Lucy?" Hearing the name Lucy now didn't sit well with me. But there were many people with that name, so since the teacher asked, I went over to take a look, then shook my head. Teacher Smith smiled and said, "It's normal not to remember. She's many years younger than you." That year when this child came to school, her right arm was broken, her little face pale as paper. She said she fell herself, but looking at how hastily the arm was bandaged, and thinking of her father's fierce and unscrupulous appearance, I guessed she was beaten again. I heard her father was involved in pyramid schemes. When he made some money at first, he sent his daughter to town for high school. But soon, he ran out of money, not even providing her with living expenses. Once I went to her house to help her apply for poverty relief, and I saw her father dragging her into a car, taking her to some big shots drinking party. Isn't that forcing his daughter into hostess work? The child is good at studying and always ranks in the top 3. However, after breaking his right arm, it was midterm exams, and he couldn't write with his hand, resulting in the lowest score in the whole school. Normally, a child would take the opportunity to skip the exams, but this child is determined, constantly looking down, appearing very discouraged. At this point, Teacher Smith smiled and glanced at me, saying, "At this moment, I thought of my student, Sarah." Suddenly, it dawned on me, I remembered. In high school, I joined the girls' soccer team. Although my skills were not great, I ran back and forth energetically on the lush green soccer field. One day, while playing, I was bumped into, and I should have just stayed down, but I impulsively used my right hand to support myself. Well, my hand broke. Around that time, a boy broke his leg while playing basketball, and the teacher warned us to be careful, but I surprised her again. Teacher Smith was so angry that she made us sit in the front row of the classroom, one on each side, as a warning. Being under the teacher's watchful eyes every day, unable to secretly read novels, I got bored. So, I practiced writing with my left hand. By the time my right arm healed, my left hand was writing quite decently. Teacher Smith mentioned a classmate who also broke her right hand and asked me to write her a letter of encouragement with my left hand. At that time, I had just graduated from college and was still at home before starting to work in City B. I found that the muscle memory of writing with my left hand was still there. I enthusiastically wrote a long letter, and also dug out the duck egg rolls I made after breaking my hand, which had no words on them, just a bunch of scribbles. I wanted to show her that even if you get 0 on the test, it's not a big deal. The junior read my letter, and a month later, she replied with a letter, written quite nicely. Since we had this connection, I approached the girl and looked at her photo again. In the post-college entrance exam photo, she was still wearing the summer school uniform, a white shirt and black pants, standing out among a crowd of dresses. Under the harsh summer sunlight, she still appeared as a beautiful and delicate girl, and looked somewhat familiar. Chapter 16. After returning to City B, one day at noon, a colleague said that someone named Lucy was looking for me downstairs. At that moment, I was yawning in the pantry, waiting for the coffee machine to pour coffee into my mug. Upon hearing this, I glanced out through the floor-to-ceiling glass window and saw the person downstairs looking up, which startled me. What era is this? I didn't go looking for her, yet she came to find me. There was no way to avoid it, so I put on a cold mask, took my employee card, and went downstairs. Today, she looked very plain, no makeup. When she saw me coming downstairs, she hurriedly approached me and softly called me senior sister. Then, she froze in place. I also froze, as her bare face looked exactly like the person in the graduation photo. 10 minutes later, Lucy and I sat in a coffee shop under the company building, trying to sort out our thoughts. Lucy had come to find her senior sister. She had a successful spring recruitment season, nearly 20 years of hard work, finally transforming from a poor student with nothing to a promising newcomer in the workplace. She felt it was time to meet the senior sister who had helped her in the past. She had been hesitant before, feeling that she would only burden others. She knew her senior sister's name was Sarah. The first time she saw that name on the letterhead, it was etched in her heart for nearly 10 years. When they met, she recognized her as the face she had seen on her ex-boyfriend's phone. As for me, after fortifying my spirit, I was prepared to confront the third party, only to find out she was coming to acknowledge me. What a situation. Thanks to this cafe, which liked to use oversized coffee cups, I awkwardly grinned behind the large cup, taking 2 minutes to gather my thoughts before setting it down. Lucy, on the other side, hadn't touched her coffee. She nervously pushed a delicate small box towards me with both hands, then stared at the table like a guilty schoolgirl, not lifting her head. I opened it and saw a platinum necklace with a pendant of a bluebell flower, its style subtle and elegant, definitely expensive. I remember copying a poem about wind chimes from Sister's letter. When I saw this necklace that day, I felt it was perfect for you. I tried to recall that letter, couldn't remember the poem, but remembered what Teacher Smith had said to me. By then the sky was dark, a cool evening breeze blowing, Teacher Smith gazing out the window with a worried expression. I wonder how this child is doing now. In the end, sitting in front of me now was a junior sister I had formed a bond with 10 years ago. I accepted her gift, told her that Teacher Smith missed her and to come back for a visit when she had time. Chapter 17. Back at the company, I immediately locked myself in the bathroom stall. Perhaps I should have been stern instead of letting things slide. After all, when she did those things that hurt my feelings, she didn't show any mercy. Using Debbie's words to find excuses for myself, that would be because I haven't suffered a big loss, so my heart is too soft. Being pampered by my parents since childhood, excelling in academics, being betrayed by Frank was the first big loss I suffered in nearly 30 years of life. I caught sight of a Weibo message on my phone, and I instinctively picked it up. After a quick check, I confirmed my guess. Lucy found my Weibo through a high school classmate, not through Frank's connection. This meant she followed me not to show off. I still had lingering doubts, feeling that there was something illogical about what Lucy had done. She didn't give off the vibe of someone foolishly flaunting her boyfriend's salary slip on Weibo. Even as an intern, upon joining the company, she would have been briefed on the company's policies, so she should know where the line is. Unable to figure out what was going on, it was 5:30, so I shut down my computer and left work. The streets of City B were already filled with the green shadows of early summer. Chapter 18. Over the weekend, a colleague asked me for help, to accompany him to the mall to pick a birthday gift for his mother. The colleague's name was Andy, slender and fond of wearing shirts with knitted cardigans. He had studied in Japan, exuding a somewhat artistic youthfulness. We weren't close, maybe exchanging some thank you or you're welcome during office gatherings, but that didn't qualify as real communication. Only once, we talked about novels in the office, and a colleague interjected, Anna Karenina? Isn't that a classic for adults, not something elementary school kids read? Who reads this as an adult? I earnestly replied, Anna Karenina is a superb novel, only adults can truly appreciate it. Andy, usually silent, unexpectedly clapped and laughed, well said, startling everyone. The gift-buying process went smoothly, and he quickly chose a scarf pattern at the counter. With some time left, we decided to visit North Sea Park, chatting casually by the shimmering shore. I was already considering returning to my hometown, and Andy caught on to the hint in my words, asking me why I wanted to leave. I didn't feel like explaining in detail, so I simply said, houses in City B are too expensive, can't afford one. Don't want to live a life suffocated by mortgage payments. After hearing this, he quickly suggested, why not find a partner who already has a house in City B? You are such a girl, and there are already many people who like you. Feeling embarrassed and unsure of what to say, someone had turned around, and to my surprise, it was Frank. He quickly glanced at us, his expression dark and unclear. Then he quickened his pace and walked down a side path. Chapter 19. I received an email from Frank, sent at 3 a.m. He used to love writing me letters through email. At the end of each email, he would wish me a peaceful spring, summer, autumn, and winter, as the seasons flowed through the mailbox. Curious, I opened it to read. Below is what he wrote. Sarah, please allow me to still call you that. Yesterday, I coincidentally saw you in the park. I couldn't describe my feelings at that moment, wanting to quickly escape but unable to resist stopping, wanting to hear more of your voice. These days, I keep recalling a scene from a long time ago. You didn't know me back then. It was a spring evening, and my senior brother and I came out of the teaching building. Across the street, a girl in a light blue dress was smiling and waving towards us. The few rays of setting sun filtering through the leaves of the poplar trees danced on your face, the evening breeze gently moving your skirt. Sarah, it seems like I never told you, but it was love at first sight for me. Even now, I can remember the incredible joy when my confession was successful that night. But, Sarah, when did I lose you? Just thinking about my foolish actions from some time ago feels like many needles pricking my back. You must have heard, I have been laid off and left the big factory, still haven't found a new job temporarily. But it's also because of this, I finally have the time to stop and think. As a result, I realized the magnitude of my mistakes. I thought happiness was elsewhere, but in reality, I lost the one who could make me happy. I was like a fish in water, always enjoying the tenderness of the water, so accustomed that I thought it was inconsequential, only realizing its importance after leaving. Sarah, my grandmother has passed away. Before she left, my parents were worried that she might not have handed over all her savings. My failure in this matter also disappointed her. She said that a blessed woman should not enter an unlucky door, and she wishes you happiness. The boy I saw in the park yesterday must be better than me. I hope he will cherish you more than I did. It turns out Frank's grandmother has passed away. I glanced at the cold computer screen again, then deleted the email. Chapter 20. I resigned, preparing to return to my hometown to work. As I was leaving, Andy offered to see me off alone. His mother also came, and I found out that she and I were from the same hometown. I ran into Debbie at the restaurant, and she teased me, silly you let go of a honest rich guy from City B without even realizing it. I laughed, I didn't even know he was rich, how could I hold on to him? Debbie said seriously, Sarah, you have to believe in my judgment. Even though that old lady was wearing a simple tracksuit, with natural hair color, and even took leftovers, her whole demeanor, at least 3 properties in City B. She tapped my head, look at you being clueless, you missed out. Otherwise, marry into wealth, have a grand wedding, and then you could show off and slap Frank's face hard, right? I put on a look of regret and asked her, where are you planning to have your wedding? Debbie finally succeeded in a blind date. The other person is a PhD from Penn, already promoted to associate professor at a prestigious school in City B. We'll have one ceremony on each side. I guess things are settled now. To be honest, why are you in such a rush to leave? Stay here and see how things go with Andy. The way he looked at you that day. I put away my smile and answered her doubts seriously. Debbie, I can't solve my problems in love with another man just because I failed with Frank. Frank and I have been together since university, hardly ever argued, thinking we'd be together forever. But you see, we've split up. How well do I really know Andy? How can I change my plans for him? I'm 27, not easily lost in fantasies. But I like living so clearly. Debbie rested her chin on her hand, carefully observing me for a while, then said, I finally understand why I like you. You are the best in this aspect, you are honest, not deceiving others, or yourself. I lack that kind of courage. Chapter 21. In this era of highly developed electronic communication, nearing the new year, a postal worker dropped a snow-white envelope into my mailbox downstairs. My dad brought it up for me when he went to get the newspaper, remarking that there are still people who write letters with such thoughtfulness. I read this long letter 3 times. The letter was written like this. Senior Sarah, after you accepted my gift and left that day, I sat in the cafe, crying and crying until I used up all the napkins on the table. Everyone in the cafe was staring at me. I cried out of gratitude. Many years ago, you saved me once, and that day, you saved me again. You must find it strange, right? Please allow me to start from the beginning and tell you. From the beginning, I carried the mark of shame. My birth mother was a fool who wandered into the village, taken in by my grandmother to give birth to me and then kicked out. My father and grandmother were both enthusiastic about pyramid schemes, deceiving all our relatives and neighbors, eventually losing all their money too. In high school, because I had no money and only one bra to wear, my roommates deliberately soaked the clothes I had changed into, publicly pointing out the next day that I wasn't wearing a bra, calling me shameless. So, during the break of evening self-study, I returned to the dormitory and took turns using their toothbrushes to clean the toilet. Sarah, at that moment, I knew my soul was no longer clean. Later, my father broke my hand. At the darkest moment, I received your letter. Teacher Smith told me it was written by a senior who had also broken their hand, and I thought she was joking. I pressed the letter under my pillow, picturing your face. You must love to smile, your eyes gentle like a crescent moon when you smile. Even after my right hand recovered, I still often wrote with my left hand. Later, I got into university and even started dating a very excellent and gentle boyfriend. I thought after graduating, I could marry him and have a home of my own. But soon, misfortune struck me again. My father forced me to join the pyramid scheme group's leader, so he could become an insider, make big money. I found a way to escape from home, but soon received a call. My father had been hit by a car while looking for me. I couldn't believe it, confirming repeatedly. So, he really died on the spot? He's dead, right? The person across from me again gave an affirmative answer, and in my ecstasy, I looked up. It's over. The dark, tormenting past ended with my father's death. But soon, I couldn't laugh anymore. My boyfriend was looking at me with eyes like he was looking at a bug. He couldn't accept a girl who eagerly hoped for her father's death, so he abandoned me. In that moment, I knew that men were unreliable, and I hated the whole world. I played with men's feelings, used various means to make money. Since I suffered so much in the first 20 years, I must have a lot of money. I pretended to be innocent and naive on the surface, but in reality, my heart was full of bitterness, becoming vengeful. After going to intern, my mentor was harsh and indifferent, unwilling to spend time telling me necessary information, but publicly blamed me for the slow progress of the project during meetings, privately scolding me for not knowing anything and how did I even get in. So I decided to retaliate, pretending to admire the other person, using them until they were of no use, then ruthlessly pushing them away. Senior, I'm sorry, later I found out he was your boyfriend. I ruined your life. Before that, I ruined many people's lives. Senior, seeing you that day, you were just as I imagined. You are like the brightest side of the moon, while I am the dark and lonely mare on the far side. It was your acceptance of the gift and forgiveness of my actions that saved me once again. Through your forgiveness, I experienced what true brightness of character is. Senior, the necklace is spotless, bought with my internship salary. Once again, you pulled me out of the mire. Thank you. Chapter 22. If the truth of the matter were told to Frank, I wonder what his reaction would be. He used to think he had choices on both sides, thinking Lucy was nothing but naive. Actually, Frank didn't become that kind of person all at once. He wasn't so calculating and harsh before. I remember the year he participated in the ACM International Collegiate Programming Contest. When his teammate fell ill, he wrote code for 2 people, not sleeping for several days. After the competition, he came back in a suit, striding out of the airport walkway. As soon as we met, he rested his head on my shoulder, saying he was dead tired and wanted to sleep for 3 days and nights. But after just a short rest at the airport restaurant, he went back to school to discuss papers with his teacher. Frank, with 3 core papers, got a super special offer, confidently entered a big company, only to have his mentor take all his achievements and even step on him during the environmental assessment. Encountering a leader assigning the same task to 2 people, calling it a horse race, making him painfully feel like he was completely treated as a tool. I have no right to criticize Frank for not being brave enough, for not sticking to his original intentions, because I have not suffered the torment that could completely wear down one's ideals. But our relationship is over. After learning that I returned to my hometown, Frank extended an olive branch seeking reconciliation, with a very humble attitude, but I declined. My feelings for him have shattered, and cannot be pieced back together. Lucy gave up the offer from the big company, closed her Weibo account with 100,000 followers as an internet celebrity, and went abroad to study. Debbie had a baby in her 2nd year of marriage, and I was promoted to Aunt Sarah. I bought a house in my hometown, not far from my parents. After paying the down payment, most of the mortgage was covered by the Housing Provident Fund. During renovations, I accidentally found plans for renovating rental houses from many years ago. Before leaving campus, I truly believed that we could live a happier life. Life is full of uncertainties, especially in relationships. But having received love and support from childhood to adulthood, navigating life's uncertainties isn't so frightening. Like the boy I bumped into on the street corner the other day while walking the dog, he asked me to browse a bookstore together. As we spend time together, perhaps he will become my lover, or maybe just a passerby, and that's okay. Like a lyric goes, take it as a pastime to relax, prepare for a first kiss at age 66. Maybe I'll get married at 66.